Welcome to CyberMAYnia, Cyber Talks with the brightest minds in cybersecurity. Discussing risks, AI, emerging threats, workforce challenges, and more. With your host, May Brooks.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of CyberMAYnia. And with me today is a fascinating human being. Bid, how are you today?
Hi, mate. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. And you had me on your podcast, and it was such a wonderful conversation that I just immediately said, you have to come on CyberMAYnia because you have such incredible insights.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so as always, we start these conversations with you telling us a little bit about you, yourself, and your fascinating story in cybersecurity.
So thank you once again for having me. My name is Bidemi Ologunde. I also go by Bid, B-I-D. It's easier, shorter. I'm a cybersecurity professional. I currently live in the United States. I'm originally from Nigeria. Came to the US in 2012 for grad school. And I got my master's and PhD in electrical engineering. And my area of focus was wireless network security. And then that led me to getting a job at a telecommunications company. I was thinking of going to work there as a network engineer, but they realized they needed people to work in the cybersecurity department to secure the network. So basically secure the network, but not from an engineering perspective. So I had to learn all these newish skills. And to me, it was fascinating because I welcome challenges. I like to do research and investigations. I realized there was way more to network engineering than just the hardware component. And from there, I got into cybersecurity. So my route into cybersecurity was from an academic point of view. I was able to do the Network Plus and the A Plus and all the network focused certifications. And working at that company, the telecoms company, I developed new skills, basically saying, this is the kind of skills I now need as a cyber network defender. So that led me to, very different. So that led me into learning about cybersecurity, IT security. And then from there, my career took a slight turn. I wanted to end up as a network engineer doing network engineering stuff, but I ended up as a cyber network defender doing cyber network defending stuff. So that's the summary of my experiences.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's interesting because one of the things that people always ask me about going into cybersecurity is, where should I go? What is the background? And it's so amazing because so many people in this industry has such diverse backgrounds. You with a PhD in engineering, someone else will not have a BA even. They will come from like completely different routes. People coming from law enforcement, from legal, from basically from all forms of life. And that's, for me, that's one of the things that I personally really love about this industry, that it is so diverse. So you already talked a little bit about what drew you to this field, but I know that today, one thing that you are focusing on is cybercrime investigation, threat intelligence, strategy, and things like that. What drew you to that part of the business, which is not the classical, let's secure this organization?
Right. So from what I was mentioning earlier, my career at the telecommunications company, I started to realize I actually like doing specific types of research and investigations. Research that would start with limited information, that would require me to collect more information, usually from multiple different sources. So collect information from maybe an Instagram account and then link that Instagram account to something I saw on a series of network logs, and then link those two to something someone posted on Twitter 3 years ago, and then link that to some financial transactions that we found last week, and then bring all that together to tell a story about why this crime is happening, why this cybercrime is happening, why is it happening right now when we are seeing it, what is the purpose of this cybercrime, what is the means, motive, and the opportunity they are exploiting, and bring all that together and then present it to someone, a decision maker, or another team, maybe a bank fraud team investigating something, or maybe the FBI, or maybe another law enforcement agency, to now form a component of their own investigation. So now, those types of investigations are things I like doing. I would wake up at 2 a.m. and happily do those types of investigations. I would stay up late and do those types of investigations while I was at that telecoms company. So all of that now made me realize there are actually ways I could add value with these network defending skills I've developed. And then I started expanding my skill set, learning on my own, taking courses, taking classes, looking at different ways I can learn to be able to do these types of investigations. And then my next job after that was in the financial industry, doing fraud investigations, working on investigations where an insider, an employee at that financial institution, was trying to commit money laundering, was trying to help some cartels in another country to launder their money here in the US. I was doing investigations that would show how during the pandemic, people would take the COVID loans and misuse it. And it's different types of investigations like that. And that led me to another job I had that basically made me realize there are so many things I could help to do regarding human trafficking and child trafficking. So all of these different skill sets were building on top of each other. And I didn't even realize that. Because I started by just doing cybersecurity, and then I found myself doing threat intelligence, piecing different parts of an investigation together. And then I found myself working with people in the intelligence community, like spies here and there, because what I was doing is very similar to what these spies in quotes would do, trying to find the bad guys before they do the bad things bad guys do. And that led me into now, on my free time, I work on investigations to assist law enforcement agencies. Similar to what I do for my regular job, because at the end of the day, people trafficking humans, people trafficking children would abuse a company's product if it's possible to abuse the company's product. Think banks, for example. They would create fake bank accounts to move money around to facilitate these trafficking operations in a way that wouldn't flag their actions to law enforcement. So they would abuse car rental companies to rent cars so that the cars law enforcement knows they use, that is already flagged in the system, they wouldn't use those cars. They would use rental cars to move victims around. They would use fake IDs to rent rental properties, houses in fancy neighborhoods, because no one would think to look twice at a 6-bedroom house in an upscale neighborhood as a potential victimization venue. But that's what these people do. They go on rental websites to rent mansions. So they're abusing the product on these rental property websites. And those are the types of investigations I assist law enforcement with, figuring out what they do, how they do it, in a way that would basically cripple the operation. So that's kind of, again, the progression. I'm the kind of person where I learn a skill, I find tangential ways to use that skill. And of course, in doing that, I learn new skills. So
that's fantastic. Yeah, this really ties back to something that I've mentioned in this podcast so many times, and many of my guests did, around lifelong learning and taking your skills, and how I'm a huge fan of Steve Jobs's talk, connecting the dots. He couldn't foresee when he was taking certain classes in college how that will impact 20, 30 years later, a product suite that he was developing for Apple. And I think that the same is true for a lot of people. We learn something, sometimes it will start as a hobby, and we'll use it later on in our day-to-day jobs. So that is something that really resonated with me. And another thing that resonated with me is the fact that a lot of the things that you do both in your day-to-day job, like investigation for your company, etc. But in your free time, you also do a lot of investigations. You volunteer and you do a lot of these investigations, which is amazing. And I think that for a lot of our listeners, I think it's sometimes hard to find purpose, especially in this world that where a lot of conversations around burnout in the cybersecurity realm. And it makes a lot of sense because it is a very stressful job.
Right.
And finding that way that you can make a difference, finding your why, finding something that you do in your spare time. And it's funny that we're not talking about on your spare time, go to the beach and relax with a cocktail. No, on my spare time, I'll do an investigation and help bring human traffickers to justice.
Right.
But to each his own, everyone should find their thing that makes them happy about what they do.
Right.
And I want to touch upon, you said that you came to the US in 2012.
Correct.
From Nigeria. And I know that when we're talking about cybercrime and these things, we're talking a lot about global perspectives. And we see people working, the act itself might be against US citizens or US companies, but people might be doing it from China or from Europe or from Africa or from all over the place.
Right.
Now I want to ask you a little bit about how did your background coming from another country, seeing other things, I think that a lot of people can already understand how your research background came to part in the investigation, but how does your global perspective help you in this investigation?
Thanks for that great question. And coming from a different country, a different background, culture, etc., definitely helps because by default, I'm seeing this thing from, I want to say an external perspective, but that may not even capture what I'm trying to say properly. I'm seeing it from a non-American perspective, meaning I'm necessarily being skeptical about what I'm seeing because you tell me someone sends you an email and they're trying to get you to do something you would rather not do, and you are about to do that thing. But coming from where I come from, I'm like, well, have you asked someone for someone else's opinion? Because in Western countries, it's more individualistic in nature. Everything they do is individualistic. I can do this, I can get this, which is fine. But from an African perspective, not even African, Southeast Asians do it as well. Some parts of Eastern Europe do it as well. They include other people in decision making. It doesn't mean you cannot make decisions by yourself, but you just run it by at least one more person. So before you click something in an email, you're asking, oh, my brother, sister, cousin, uncle, auntie, come take a look at this thing. Should I still go ahead and do it? Something as simple as that shows up in how I approach anything and everything. Before I send an email to a coworker, I'm asking a colleague to look through. Not every time, of course.
Yeah, of course.
So that simple background way of doing things shows up in how I investigate, how I do research, saying, I want to double check something before even a line of research, an hypothesis I'm coming up with, I'm double checking at every step of the way to be able to course correct before it gets too down the rabbit hole. So that's just one way I approach investigations in general.
It's fantastic. And you know what? Let's stay on the globalization part. What are some of the biggest cybercrime trends that you're seeing today? And how do they evolve in recent years in different geographies? Maybe the use of AI, because I know that a lot of it is utilizing AI. How do you see the difference? What are the trends that we're currently seeing?
So since 2022, November 30, when ChatGPT came around, so many things have changed since then. And it's just a little over 2 years, but we've already seen phishing emails are now different. We've seen
Yeah.
deep fakes are way better now. We've seen how there are cases I've worked on that involved threat actors coming up with different elements of their operations and in a much better fashion. So before they would use all these online banks, the kind of banks that don't have buildings, to do their money laundering operations. But now they use AI to do research on the kind of infrastructure to set up that would make it go unnoticed. So that if banks are already looking out to flag specific types of online banking systems, they may not see that because now the AI systems are advising them to actually go to specific physical banks, use 1, 2, 3, 4 methods, set up actual accounts, and then run that account through maybe a shell company. And then they would actually go online and register a business, use that business to set up a bank account. So, all of this to say that a well organized criminal group that actually pays attention to details, because there is actually something as criminal groups that pay attention to detail. Not all of them don't pay attention to detail.
Absolutely.
So a criminal group that pays attention to detail are now becoming way more sophisticated within the past 2 years.
And I think it's becoming much easier. You mentioned phishing emails and the use of AI with phishing emails. In the past, before 2022, I used to tell people that one of the warning signs, like one of the red flags to identify a phishing email was misspells, grammatical mistakes, etc.
Right.
Today, I actually tell people if there are misspells, that means a human sent it. That actually increases the reliability of that message because ChatGPT doesn't make grammatical mistakes.
Yep.
So, and today I think that is definitely something that we see changing quite rapidly around the world, and we see a lot of social engineering attacks utilizing AI. And you already mentioned organized crime and nation states, and I want to ask you a little bit about the difference that you see between nation state cybercrime and, let's call it, gang-based cybercrime, especially those around ransomware. How do you see those different adversaries come to part? Who should be concerned about which one of them?
So, generally speaking, nation-state groups have specific objectives. We're coming after you because we want to steal your vaccine research. We're coming after you because we see this new drone technology you just developed, and we just want this specific component of your drone systems. We don't want the entire thing. We just want the ability for your drones to now stay 1 hour longer in the air that you just launched recently. We're coming after you because we want to steal your cryptocurrencies. That's it. We don't care about your dollars and pounds and euros. We just want your cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
So that brings me back to this analogy of, you see a criminal gang and they just no discipline. They just get their weapons and they go rob people. But then you see a fully funded army, like not fake army, but a faction or rebel faction. They are fully funded. They have weapons and tanks and so on, but they don't terrorize citizens. They have a specific objective saying, we're fighting for this part of land in this part of our country. We're going to leave everybody else alone. Don't bother us. We're not going to bother you. So all of that to say that a big difference, like I said, generally speaking, nation-state groups have specific objectives and they go about it in a very disciplined way. They use specific tools to achieve those objectives using specific techniques and procedures, TTPs, tactics, techniques, procedures. Maybe they only operate on Saturday evenings and Sunday evenings. That's how disciplined some of these groups are. Unlike a criminal gang, cybercrime gang, they would come at you any day of the week. They would use DDoS attacks. They would send phishing emails. They would try to get you to download something from a watering hole website. They would make sure you see a fake ad on a website you usually visit. They would do everything possible. They would go on ChatGPT and write a malicious code to attack you in an email. They would put a bad code behind a picture and send it to you by text message. They throw everything at the wall to see what sticks. But nation-state groups, very disciplined, you probably wouldn't know they're coming at you until months later when Microsoft sends you an email or Apple sends you an email saying, you were probably attacked 3 months ago. We just found out. Now we're telling you these are the things you should do, and so on. And journalists get those messages every now and then. Politicians in high places, in high positions, get those types of messages from Microsoft, Google, Apple every now and then. Regular people, maybe not, because
I think that's also, I think one of the first things that every person / organization should ask themselves is, who will attack me? And don't assume that only because you're small, no one is going to attack you. For those cyber gangs, they don't care. If you have money, you're a target. And I always tell that to people who unfortunately got hacked and they come to me, but why would they attack me? What's like? And I always tell them, it's not personal, it's business. Yes, it's criminal business, but for them, it's business. They're here to make money.
Yeah, and that brings me to this concept of threat models. And again, cybercrime groups, criminal gangs, they would throw everything at the wall, see what sticks. Some of them would go online to see, in this country, in this city, there are websites that would give me lists of open ports on public IP addresses. Some criminal gangs would go on those websites and just start searching what's open, what can I start probing into. They would see webcams. They would see driveway cameras. They would see cameras in elementary schools that are not secured enough. They would see all sorts of things. They would see somebody's Bluetooth device in their home. They would see people's home security devices and so on. And then they would just start hacking all those open ports, see what they can steal. And some of them get lucky and they find someone, or they see an email address on some of these exposed devices, and the email address at something.gov.gov or at something.edu, a school account, a government account. And from there, they are like, this looks interesting. Let me do some quick OSINT, open source intelligence, and see who this email owner is. I see it's a .gov, it means it's a government official. They look the person up. Oh, this person is the mayor of this major city in this popular large country. Now I have access to a device that this person has logged into. Where is this device located? It could be their bedroom. It could be their office.
Exactly.
It could be a medical record in that person's doctor's office. So now this threat actor goes one step further, saying, I was looking for open ports on the internet. I was lucky to find one connected to someone important. Now I have all this extra data that could potentially embarrass this person. Let me take it and then email this person, because I can see the email, and tell them, well, I got access to the camera in your bedroom. I know who your wife looks like. Guess what? 2 days ago, the person in your bedroom doesn't look like your wife. How about you pay me and I make all this go away? Or they get access to a database that shows a medical record or a government database. And so
that's what I want to say, that sometimes people say, well, I'm not that interesting. No, you don't have to be that interesting. You have to be that lucrative. And they're looking, and they have time, and they have patience, and they're curious. Most hackers are very curious people. So if they'll find an opening, they'll just take it. I always say that hackers are like water. They find the path of least resistance. So that's what they're trying to find. And one thing that I find fascinating about your work and everything you've just told us is the fact that you're an individual, you work for a company, you don't work for law enforcement, and yet you have a lot of connections with law enforcement. You work very closely with them, with intelligence agencies, etc. And you're not the only one. And I think it's a great thing, but I want to hear your perspective about this collaboration between the public and the private sector, and how can it actually improve cybercrime investigation, fighting cybercrime.
Thank you for that. Again, another great question. And this again brings me back to my background, saying where I come from in Nigeria, West Africa. Growing up, everyone is responsible for everyone's security. Everyone is responsible for everyone's safety. We lived in our house, middle income family, we had neighbors and so on. And of course, we look out for each other. If I see my neighbors' kids doing something they shouldn't be doing, I tell my dad. If my dad is not around, I tell my mom. If my mom is not around, I tell their parents, that kid's parents, or another neighbor saying, this child was playing rough play, they could get injured. How about, do something? And then the older we got, that concept just became more ingrained because, like I said earlier, some cultures are individualistic, other cultures are more family oriented, community oriented. Someone is doing something wrong, you correct them. You don't just say, oh, not my business, not in my backyard, NIMBYism. And that led me to, I got to the US and just observing, I tell people, I visited all 50 states, not because I felt like traveling,
Wow.
but because, but because the only way to learn about a new country is to actually go to where the people in that country live, see how they live, see how they interact, see the food they eat the food they eat, listen to the music they listen to, and so on. So it was out of curiosity that I traveled to all 50 states over a 3-4 year period just to be able to learn about the different parts of the US. So having that in mind, I again tell people if I became a medical doctor, I would still find a way to help different communities in terms of public health. If I became a carpenter, I would still find a way to make furniture for different communities all over the US. I happen to find myself in cybersecurity. What's the best way to add value? Not just within cybersecurity, within my state of Florida, but as wide a variety of audience as possible. Well, law enforcement ask the public for help all the time.
True.
Pick a random city in the US, Google the name of that city and police department. You would see the website of that city's police department. There will be a section for community outreach. There will be a section for we need help with these cases. And then they will list the kind of help they need. We are looking for this person. This is the kind of car they drive. This was the crime they committed. Any information that would help, send this to this email address or call this phone number and so on. Every now and then there is something called an Amber Alert. Someone kidnaps a child and they're on the run and then they need the public's help. All those things are public ways the law enforcement agencies ask the community for help. And you can use your personal email to submit whatever you found. You can use a burner email if you don't want them to know your email address. They even encourage anonymous submissions because they want you to be as separated from that case as possible, maybe for your own safety. Maybe you are not comfortable sharing something. All that is possible with technology nowadays. You can go to the gas station and buy a flip phone to call the police department with the tips you found, and they wouldn't be able to trace it back to you, and so on and so forth. So I saw that and I was like, oh, I have all these skills already, piecing information together from different sources to be able to solve a crime, to be able to solve a component of a crime. And I'm just going to do that for every law enforcement agency that needs that help, not just in Florida, in, I want to say 28, 29 states, all over the US.
It's
Because
amazing.
from traveling to all these different states, I was able to see the unique needs in different communities. In some parts of Arizona, where the Native Americans have reservations, large reservations, there are needs specific to that part of the country. In some parts of Pennsylvania, where the Amish people live, there are needs specific to that part of the country. Same thing in New Mexico and California, the Northern California, and then you have the Ohio, Illinois area, and so on and so forth. So my curiosity led me to learn about the country. Now I have an idea of what different parts of the country go through seasonally, annually, and so on. And I'm just able to add as much value as possible. So that's why I do what I do.
That is so amazing. And honestly, you're an inspiration. And
Thank you.
I think you just gave like a diamond piece of advice for people who are looking to either transition full time or not full time into cybercrime, into cyber investigation, even to threat intelligence. Just be curious. Look for the opportunities. Don't wait at home. Oh, I wish I could do more to help the
Right.
global cybercrime,
Right.
cyber defense community. No, be proactive. Go online. Go to your local law enforcement agencies, whatever. Reach out and say, I have these skills. And for those listening to us, like for example, the advice you gave that you can go and buy a flip phone or use burner phones or use anonymous emails, etc. If you're not sure how to do it, reach out. There are people that will help you. And I've actually been the mule in quite a few cases that people reached out to me, even in bounty, like not bug bounty programs, but people who found vulnerabilities, 0 days, etc. They didn't want to tell the company themselves. They didn't want to be
Right.
held accountable. So they reached out to me and to other people as well. And we were sort of their front. So there are people that can definitely help in that. And I think that is such strong advice for people aspiring to do more. And I will even take it to another side. So for people with that background, like you have, like myself, with research, with OSINT, with threat intelligence, with things like that, yeah, that's probably the place where we can contribute.
Right.
But for other people, you all have skills. So someone is a great communicator, great. Start volunteering in your kids' school and start talking to them about cybersecurity. Go to old folks' house and talk to them about security awareness. Talk to them about social engineering, because people need, I think that the law enforcement agencies in general are swamped. They're swamped in general, but let's talk about cybercrime. It is such an easy way to commit crime, unfortunately, and it's very lucrative, that they're absolutely swamped, and that's a global issue. More than that, it's even harder to bring those people to justice because, unfortunately, the current legal system all over the world is struggling because, as I said, someone might be committing a crime in the US, but they're actually based in Europe or Asia or who the hell knows where
Right.
they are, because they're all over the place. They're pinging themselves and using all sorts of mechanisms to hide where they are. And I think we all can do better as an industry. And again, and you know, that will lead me to my next question. I think that for someone like you, and for those who don't know, you're also a podcaster. You do a lot of things to help the community grow and educate, and I really find it inspiring.
Thank you.
And I think that for cybersecurity is such a high pressure industry. I think I already know, but I want to hear from you. How do you stay motivated and avoid burnout while working in such an intense space, while working those long hours that I'm sure you work, and you still
Right.
find time to volunteer and do so much more?
Right. So thank you once again. Another great question. So coming from, again, my background, and my parents showed us, my siblings and I, the importance of hard work. And they also showed us the importance of taking breaks, resting, so that you can do more impactful work. So that way, you are adding value. Again, I keep coming back to adding value because there's a proverb in Yoruba language, my language. It says, a boy becomes a man, a girl becomes a woman, when he or she can add more value than they consume. A child becomes an adult when they add more value than they consume. Because think about it, babies, toddlers, kids, you do everything for them. Once you become a teenager, you have menial jobs you do. You become a young adult. You now chip in to buy gifts for grandma. You now chip in to do a retirement party for your parents. You now chip in to pay your parents' mortgage. You now chip in to do different things. That's when you're actually now becoming an adult. You're taking more responsibility on, and every adult in your family would remind you, now you take more responsibility on, you need to be able to find a way to balance work and rest. Because the moment you start taking responsibility on, those responsibilities are only going to keep increasing and expanding. You have grown kids, you know all about that. Your kids are going to keep needing more from you, not in a bad way, but just that's how the nature of responsibility is. Your family, your extended family are now going to need more. They're not going to necessarily demand more from you. They're just going to need more from you. So in line with that, you start a career, you start advancing. At the point where you start to add value to that industry, because at the beginning of everyone's career, they take value. Medical doctors, lawyers, accountants, engineers, I don't care what your field is. The beginning of everyone's career, you're taking value, you're going to conferences, you're asking all the questions. There's going to be a point in time where you go to conferences and you answer the questions. You don't even have to be a speaker at the conference. Someone just walks up to you to discuss what you both just listened to, and you find yourself answering that person's questions. That's when you are becoming a value adder in that industry. At that very point in time, your role is just going to keep expanding. So now the way I find a way to balance it is every now and then I actually take breaks where there are 3 laptops around me at any given point in time. I close them. I don't physically see them for days on end, 2-3 days.
Wow. Amazing.
Simply because that's what works for me. That's what works for my brain to actually wind down and say, for the next 48 hours, I'm not going to look at any screen. Even my phone is on grayscale all the time. I don't want to see the colors of my phone because that would make me want to tap on an app and open it and see what's going on in that app. Everyone makes fun of me. My wife makes fun of me. My friends make fun of me. My phone is on grayscale 100% of the time. Does it affect how I read emails? No. Does it affect my text messages? No. But I don't want to see the notifications because it's just going to make me want to open it. If I turn on the color for any reason, it looks weird to me.
Yeah,
Like,
because you're not
there's
used
so
to it.
much color. Yeah. So another way I take breaks is just doing things with the kids. I have 2 young boys. Every now and then I would go for a walk, 1 hour, 2 hours in the neighborhood, just walking. And they like it. I like it. It's a way to just relax, unwind. My brain thanks me later for doing that. Another way is, like I said, working on those investigations to help other agencies, other people. My friends call me up sometimes saying, my phone number keeps getting these text messages. What could be going on? And then I do some research for them and so on. There was one case around the time I started my podcast in 2021, later in 2021, almost a year into podcasting. I got an email from a teenager in Jordan, the country Jordan. And maybe I mentioned this during our podcast.
Yeah.
And this young person emailed me saying he likes the episodes I release. He's trying to get his dad to allow him go to university in Amman, Jordan, to study cybersecurity. And I was like, wait, you listen to my podcast from halfway across the world, and you are trying to use my episodes to convince your dad to make you or allow you study what you like to study, because he told me how they have an oil business. The entire family has different oil fields in different countries in the Middle East, not just in Jordan. And everyone, the grandfather, the dad, all the uncles and aunties, they all work in this oil company. So it's just natural for him to continue. He already has a job at the oil company.
Secured, yeah.
Yeah. But he's not interested. He just likes technology. And he's using my podcast. He's showing his dad saying, oh, well, this is a young person in America. And every now and then I talk about my background. So it felt like he knew me well enough that our backgrounds match, and he can use that to justify and tell his. And over the years, we've kept in touch. Now he's studying for his bachelor's degree in cybersecurity. He's going to maybe come to the US to get a master's degree in cybersecurity. He asks me where to do internships. He asks me what kind of certifications to get. And this is someone I've never met. We only communicate by email. He's in Jordan. All things being equal, I probably would never meet him.
Yeah, that's
And
amazing.
stories like that are part of the things that keeps me going. Saying, I just started the podcast not for any particular reason. I just like to share what I know. If people listen, fine. If they don't listen, fine. I went the podcast route because it's easier. I'm just going to record and upload. It's not in people's faces. I'm not emailing people saying, listen to my podcast. No. If you find it and you are interested, fine. If not, someone else is going to find it. And that relationship I have with that young man in Jordan basically motivates me to keep going. And every now and then I would talk to some of the parents in my son's school, and they will say, what do you think? Because they know me as a cybersecurity person. And then they will ask me a simple question. And then I will make different connections for them. And they will be like, all of that is possible. And I go, yes, it's possible. If you post a first day of school picture of your child, because you're proud, every parent is a proud parent. You're saying, my child has started kindergarten, first grade, second grade. I'm so proud. And there is a little board, blackboard the child holds. It says their name, the name of their teacher, their height and weight, the name of their school, and what they want to be when they grow up.
The uniform with the logo
of the school, and what the child wants to be when they grow up. And they post that on Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. And then I'm telling one of the parents last year, August, saying, this picture you posted, they took it off after I told them why they shouldn't have posted it. Now I know where you live. Because
you know
in
where
the US,
I live.
yeah.
And it's even more than that. If, for example, the same person also shares on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever, I'm now traveling to Europe for a conference, and someone can come up to the kid in school. Oh, mom just called me. She's late. She was supposed to pick you up, but her flight got delayed. I'm a good friend of your mom. Don't worry about it. You can come with me. And unfortunately, these are stories that have happened.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think that, but I love that because you're sharing your experience, you're sharing your knowledge, and that gives you meaning. And I'm very much the same because I was looking for meaning. I think that, as I asked you in the question, this industry is so intense that we have to find something bigger than ourselves, something sometimes, and for some people, just doing their job is more than enough, and that's amazing. But if you are looking for more meaning, learn from Bid. You're doing an amazing, really an amazing job.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So before we wrap up this conversation, which was absolutely fascinating, as I knew it would be, I want to do a quick pop quiz. Very short questions, very short answers, whatever comes to mind. No wrong or right answers. Maybe wrong questions. I don't know. So, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. What's one piece of technology you can't live without in your daily work?
I want to say my phone, but not in the way most people think. So the way I use my phone is I have all these apps, but I don't necessarily even use the apps. I have Instagram to promote my podcasts, the people that see me on Instagram, they're like, we send you things, you don't even read them. And then I remind them, well, I actually don't use
Don't really
Instagram
use
to
it.
read memes or post or reels. It's for me to post an upcoming episode or an upcoming blog article, and then I close the app. I have my Instagram set to 15 minutes per day. Once the 15-minute timer is, once my 15 minutes is up, that's it until the next day. So whatever you send to me, I'm not going to see it because I'm done for my Instagram time for that day. But my phone, I mentioned it because I have all these aggregated feeds that tells me what's going on all over the world.
Amazing.
And some of my friends and family would say, well, that's your intel brain, intelligence brain coming out saying you basically work like a spy, which may or may not be true. And guess what spies do? They basically know things
Well, I think that's what
from,
we all need to do in cybersecurity. We need
yeah,
to know things. We can't be
right.
surprised. Like if someone has a conversation with me and tells me, "Oh, there was a breach in whatever," I'm supposed to know that.
Yeah, yeah,
Not every single breach that happens around the world, but the big ones.
exactly.
Fantastic.
So when people
Yeah.
now ask me, did you hear what happened in South Africa regarding a shipping container that was arrested, da 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 da, and then I go a step further and then tell them the things that happened before that incident and the things that would likely happen after that incident, and they're like, "How do you know all this?" Well, by reading the news.
Yeah, so I think I actually think that's great advice. I think that I use quite a few AI agents that collect the news for me. I'm on several groups that sort of send, so staying up to date, staying current, and not just in cyber related events. You just mentioned South Africa, and understanding what's going on in the world is very important for us as security practitioners, because if we see something happening right now in the Middle East, it might impact Europe in 2 months or the US in 6. So we have
Right.
to be very aware of that. Fantastic. Next question. How do you celebrate your achievements?
So up until 2019, 2020, I was the kind of person that I hardly celebrated anything, not even my own birthdays. If something happened to me and everyone is congratulating me, I see them as, why are you congratulating me? Because I get something done, it's laudable and so on. I'm already thinking of the next thing. Because the way my brain works is I do extended goal setting. That's a phrase I came up with saying I was able to get a job, a dream job. Okay, that's good. But that dream job, I now extend the goal saying this dream job should get me to a position where they pay me to come speak at conferences in 10 years. So now I see that dream job as a stepping stone, as a component of a much bigger time frame.
Beautiful.
Maybe I got a decent house. We were able to buy a house, and everybody's saying, "Oh, wow, congrats." Well, the decent house, by the time you pay it off, should allow you get your kids into a top school in 20 years' time. Again, that's just how my brain works. It's a good thing to achieve something. So, which is why I hardly celebrated anything up until 2019, 2020. The pandemic happened, and I realized how a lot of people struggled. People I know personally struggled with meaning, purpose, struggled with just waking up every day. And I was like, oh, I have to actually pay attention to the little things and actually celebrate not getting sick, celebrate now my toddler is walking. And at some point, my wife was like, you have to celebrate everything. My podcast turned 3 years old in 2024 and she got a cake.
Amazing. Well, she's right, because I'm very much like you. Like when I achieve something, I already think of, I just released this book. Oh, great. When I'm
Next
let's
book.
start working on the next one. No, wait, enjoy it. Wait.
Yep.
The next book will come. Fantastic. Can you name someone who opened a door for you during your career when you didn't expect it?
Lots of people, actually. It would be unfair to name one person, but I'm going to use a blanket description. They're most likely going to listen to this episode so they know themselves. At every job I've had, there are one or two people who have spoken up for me behind my back.
Sponsors.
Yeah, sponsors, mentors,
Yeah.
whatever we want to call them. And they did this not because they like me, not because they wanted something for themselves, but because they also benefited from someone doing that for them. So now, naturally, I do that for the people coming in the field, new to the field. I do that for every random message I see on LinkedIn saying, I see you work here. I would like to find out the kind of things you do, what your day-to-day looks like. I would drop everything I'm doing to reply that message. If I cannot drop everything I'm doing, I mark it as unread so that I would see it and remember to go back and reply. And within 1 or 2 days, maximum 2 days, I would reply that person in detail. And then they would reply me saying, oh, wow, I appreciate you taking time. And
Yeah.
seeing messages like that, not just a one-line message saying, oh, thanks for your email, do this, do that. It shows I'm interested in their future. Because people have done that to me at every job I've had. In grad school, I had professors who did that and basically convinced panels and committees to help me out.
Beautiful.
So again,
So you
those
paid
people know
forward.
themselves. I'm not going to
Yeah.
say to be fair
No.
to, yeah.
But it's beautiful. Paying it forward. I love that. Can you share a book or a resource? It could be, I don't know, a podcast that really impacted your career or your life?
Again, lots of books, and one that I'm currently rereading is called The Status Game by Will Storr. And it basically describes how humans are wired to compete with each other in ways that don't necessarily make sense. Because everyone is on Instagram and Facebook trying to show in a fake, humble way that they've achieved and they've done this and that and they are the best person driving the best car. And I extrapolate that, of course, to my career, saying the people that actually know people in the industry, they don't go around proclaiming it.
Yeah.
They're kind of like your mentor in Israel, Ben Israel,
Yeah.
and how if you meet him in a restaurant, you probably think he's just a random grandpa. But
True.
he knows things and he knows
does.
people. And he will drop everything to help you out once he sees that you take yourself serious. So
Yeah.
reading a book like The Status Game now tries to now remind me that, the people that show off, maybe actually they don't know anything. The people that actually stay humble and find ways to add value to everyone around them are the ones you want to have in your corner.
True. Lovely.
So, yeah.
I love that book. Great recommendation.
Yep.
And last but not least, one of my favorite questions. If you could go back in time, what's the one piece of cybersecurity advice that you would give your younger self?
I would say stay true to your focus. Because every young kid has something that interests them, that comes to them naturally. That determines what they focus on. It's every parent's job to figure that out. Of course, parents observe their kids 24/7, ideally. and they see what the kids are involved in, they see what they are interested in, what they focus on. A parent's job is not to get the child to do what the parent is interested in. No, I'm learning that now, is to do things my boys are interested in.
Yeah.
He wants to go swim. Okay, let's go swim at 7 a.m. on a Saturday.
I'm not a morning person.
So I would tell myself, stay true to your focus,
Beautiful.
drill down into the things that you are interested in, because it took me a while to realize I like research and investigations. Looking back, my parents would agree from age 3, 4, 5, I was interested in figuring things out. Why is this thing happening this way? And I would ask questions to the point where my family members would get tired. My friends in school would get tired of me asking questions. Like, why is on a road, the same stretch of road, there is a lamppost made of concrete. And then 10 feet away, there is a lamppost made of metal. Why is that?
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things I ask questions. And then people are like, why are you asking about concrete versus metal? I'm like, I just want to know. I'm curious. I don't know what to tell you. So staying true to that focus would have helped me go much further earlier.
Nice.
Because I just wanted to do engineering and become a network engineer. There is nothing research and investigations about working on the engineering of a network. You're just doing fixed things. But now I do things and I add value to. There are law enforcement agencies in states, different states, that know my name, and just from helping them out. So
beautiful. This was such an amazing conversation. You are such an inspirational person, and I really hope people listening will take, well, there's so much to take from this conversation. It really is about
thank you so much.
Staying motivated, avoiding burnout, finding your passion, giving back to community, giving back to the world, learning new things, lifelong learning. Really, this has been such an amazing episode, and thank you so much for joining me and sharing it with our audience. And I hope to see you all here next time on CyberMAYnia.